Hi, I'm Laura Flanders, and this is CityWorks, a co-production of the City University of New York School of Labor and Urban Studies and CUNY TV. Each month, CityWorks explores the lives of working people on the job, at home, in our communities, in New York, and the greater urban landscape. Last month, I had the pleasure of hosting a roundtable discussion right here at the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies with three leading political commentators to analyze the potential impact of the 2022 midterm election results on working class communities. In this special edition of CityWorks, highlights from that roundtable event, Election Aftermath, the impact on the working class.
I will admit, I did not expect these results on election night. I thought there would be a red wave, and that's because I don't think the Democrats have been united as they could be, and also because the Biden administration's response to Dobbs was frankly pretty weak, and I did not expect the voters to back Democrats in the way they did. That said, I think that says a lot more about local politics and the failure of fear-mongering that has worked over the past 20 years. It's worked effectively, but it didn't do that well this time.
This panel, we want to talk about the impact on working class people specifically. What did you see on election day related to that? There were a bunch of ballot initiatives, some wins, some losses.
I ended up my day at a bar with a bunch of Western PA coal miners. And of course, that night being that night, I asked them, well, what do you guys think of Fetterman? What do you guys think about what's going on? And it was kind of even split. Like some of the guys were like, well, I'm Republican. I don't like this. I don't like that. And others were like, oh, well, I mean, he's pro-union. Like the other guy's a clown. Like this is, it was just a very real kind of survey of like what people in his area felt. And the union, the UMWA, United Mine Workers of America, had endorsed him and had sent out, through communications, kind of like a recommendation to their members, like, hey, we think you should vote for this guy. He's the only one talking about unions, the union way of life, protecting your rights to organize, protecting you as union members. And their membership is all over the place, but it's pretty conservative in a lot of ways. So the fact that he focused so much on unions and on workers in a way that didn't seem, at least I think it came across pretty authentic and genuine. And I mean, his opponent didn't say anything. He got endorsed by some cop unions, and that doesn't even count. So I just think it really went to show that it really matters. Like, unions don't get as much attention as certain other issues because they impact, because, a smaller percentage of the population are part of them now, but it matters. To people that have a union, that have fought for their union, they want their elected officials to care and show they understand and show that they'll stand up for it. I mean, we saw in Illinois, they just voted into the state constitution. The right to organize is now enshrined in their constitution. And meanwhile, in Tennessee, right to work for less, which is, right to work is a terrible tagline. But basically that the unions are now weakened and the labor movement is now kind of knocked on the back foot in Tennessee because this was enshrined in their constitution. Just seeing the differences and knowing how that's going to impact workers and knowing how, a state like Tennessee and a state like Illinois, economically, they're not in the same bracket. And a lot of that comes down to organizing, to union rights, to all of that.
The area where I think we saw a divergence from what you might have expected versus what actually happened was in the record number of Muslims that were elected in this election, even after so many years of Islamophobia and baiting and the fear-mongering that you talked about. Record number, what do we know about them?
Yeah, it's actually astonishing. I believe it was 82 Muslims who were elected to office. Local, state, and national office, which is incredible. Although, one of the Muslims who could have won was Mehmet Oz, just to state that. But what is astonishing is that a lot of these Muslims who won are pretty progressive. They are pushing agendas like Medicare for all. They are pushing agendas like police reform, higher minimum wage. but they don't necessarily reflect the Muslim community as voters. And it's actually quite surprising when you dig into the numbers of the Muslim voters, how different they are. They are incredibly about 11% are Republican, and 40, I want to say about 41 or 42% identifies independent. And that is actually astonishing when you think about how many Muslims voted the way they did in this election. And I, more Muslims voted Republican than did so in 2018 or in 2016. And I think what it really shows to me, at least, is the limitations of identity politics and how we can, how we should perhaps start seeing groups like Muslims and other, minorities as a bit more diverse.
Perhaps.
Yeah, they also tend to be very low income, which is a surprise to a lot of people. But I think that also skews how they vote in their local elections.
And you talked about this, Gabrielle, this sort of headline writing about, oh, more African Americans voting Republican, or more Latinx voters voting Republican. What's actually beneath those headlines? Are these significant trends?
As far as African American voters are concerned, yes, there's been a little bit of a creep towards Republicans, but that belies, I think, in more mainstream quarters that you don't really understand what's going on among African American voters. There is a significant conservative streak, particularly on questions like abortion and gender issues. So the fact that there may be a somewhat of a movement, particularly when those areas become more salient for everyone else, is not particularly surprising if you understand, for example, the regional component to African American vote. African Americans in the South tend to be more conservative than African Americans, say, in the Northeast. So the fact that abortion, they're not eager to maybe engage in the abortion debate, or a candidate like Senator Raphael Warnock is going to soft pedal it because he's well aware that there is this conservative thread there.
We are still talking about a demographic that votes in the 90%.
And this
for
is
Democrats.
the thing. African American voters, until there is some major shift that has not happened yet, are voting Democratic.
High 90s.
They're going to be voting Democratic. We have seen that, for example, in the Stacey Abrams vote. In the 90s for Stacey Abrams, in the 90s for Raphael Warnock.
I think when
that
we're
is not
talking
going to
women,
shift.
isn't that like up in the 98%? It's like 99?
Yeah,
It's way up there.
exactly. I mean, there has been this attempt to say, oh, black women, black men, please. African Americans, where they are united, there might be a couple of percentage points difference between men and women. That is not significant. What is significant and what is well known is that African Americans vote Democratic because, particularly now since the Republican alternatives have become so unpalatable to people, they have gone out of their way, as we see in the Georgia race between Raphael Warnock and Herschel Walker. They have gone out of their way to inject as much white supremacist thinking. I mean, that is one conclusion I've come to in the Georgia race. If you want to understand how white supremacy works in the United States, look at the Georgia race. We're going to put forward the most unqualified black candidate forward that we can, because this is a puppet that we know white voters will go with for. So.
A couple of things I want us to talk about. One is, where are we now? And we haven't talked about Latinx voters, but I would love if anybody wants to weigh in on this question of just what trends we saw there and why mainstream media is still a little oblivious to an enormous and growing voting bloc that is not monolithic either. But let's talk a bit about where we are today, because there's no question that Democratic voters and democratically aligned folks exhaled after these midterms. It was almost like there was a bullet that was dodged, and there were some surprising results that encouraged people. But you wrote very clearly, 2008 didn't end racism, and 2022 midterms didn't secure democracy for the future. What do we need to keep our eye on now?
I think we have to recognize, as I said today in a column that I wrote for the American Prospect, there are things that have not changed. If you look, for example, this morning I saw the leadership of the Republican Governors Association, the governors of Iowa and I believe Tennessee, supported by Donald Trump, are now ensconced at the head of that organization. People were celebrating the defeat of election deniers in swing states. If you look at Indiana, Alabama, election deniers succeeded as secretaries of state. We still have the Georgia race to deal with. So there are a lot of things that have not changed.
Rosina, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that a lot has not changed. The way I think about this is that this was really, it was a national election, but it was a very local election. I mean, people voted on the issues, not necessarily on the party. There were a lot of crossover voting this time, and what's so significant and exciting about that is that this is a terrain that is up for grabs. The issues have not been resolved, which means that the Democrats and the Republicans have a lot to do to show voters that they're actually going to deliver on their promises on the issues that people care about. And a lot of people care about climate change. There are people in Detroit and Dearborn who are hit hard by climate change, even though that might not be hitting someone in New York, although that's changing too. But it's a very different calculation, and people no longer, what's exciting to me about this election is I don't think you can take for granted that people will vote Democrat or Republican because they did so in the past.
Kim?
It's been interesting from my, not outside vantage point, but sort of like curious, newer participant vantage point, I suppose, just seeing the type of people who won. I think there are some lessons that hopefully the Democrats will take from someone like Fetterman, who his whole thing was like, I'm not a typical candidate. But also he wasn't, and he won. People liked him. People trusted him because he wasn't just some nerd in a suit. There's another woman, I can't remember her full name, I feel bad, but in Washington, she just flipped a seat. She was like a young mother who owns an auto shop who's pro-abortion rights and pro-Second Amendment. And she won. And I'm like, that's my kind of gal. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that the pundits and political operatives, all the people that like to tell us how we think, they've decided that they know who we are. Like, if you are someone who cares about abortion, you don't, like, there's no way you could be conservative about anything else. There's no way that you could also be religious or also own guns. Like, everyone is one specific thing. And that's not how people are at all. I mean, even the idea of the working class vote, when pundits say that, they mean white guys in hard hats. They mean guys like my dad. They don't mean us. But we're working class too. The working class is the majority of the country. And racism and trans rights and abortion rights, those are all working class issues. I'm hoping that there's more recognition of that and more understanding of that. I'm not holding my breath, but I really hope that the results of this election show that we are not, none of us are a monolith, right? You can walk and chew gum at the same time. And also, I just hope that the Democrats and the people that were elected because of working class voters, because of labor, because unions showed up, they owe us one. We need to see them actually doing something. You can do as many photo ops as you want in front of a bunch of people with union shirts, but what's in it for us? We're at this incredibly invigorated, energizing moment in labor where people want to organize. The younger generation is getting involved, really desperately grasping on to the idea that collective action might actually save us. do not squander this moment. Don't let us down again. You know, you owe us one.
You make such an important point. I mean, the School of Labor and Urban Studies has put on this panel as our panel for the impact on working class communities. And there might be people tuning in saying, well, that's not what I expected. As you said, like, this is not your white working class guy. What about them? Talk a bit more, each of you, about what the future, what we need to be doing differently, particularly as journalists, especially as covering this concept of the white working class voter, which maybe we could just assign that whole phrase to history and talk, as you just did, about the working class and all the incredibly diverse issues that converge in working class lives in their communities.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up because I really dislike how the term working class voter is used now. It's very skewed towards a very narrow swath of the population. And that's because we tend to define the working class as someone without a college degree, which does not capture reality at all today. More people hold credit card debt, medical debt, student loan debt. College actually increases the wealth gap between Black and white Americans. We have more and more people who are considered working class, even if they do have a college degree. And it's astonishing to me that no matter how sophisticated pollsters have become, they have failed to capture this very basic reality of American people. And therefore, I think that's why they keep getting it wrong every time. And it's also, I think once we actually open up the definition of what a working class voter is, we can then actually look to, voting trends among Muslims, among Latinx people, among Black Americans, and understand, well, why are people voting the way they are?
And part of the problem is the journalistic elites, particularly in Washington, who kind of drive the journalism content, they're talking to each other. They're talking to their contacts on the Hill. They're talking to strategists, independent campaign strategists, but strategists nonetheless. They're talking to pollsters. They're not actually doing the heavy lifting of going out into the field and doing the field reporting and talking to actual working class people. Sure, there are reporters who actually go out and do that work. But for the elites, for the editors, for the people who decide what's going to be covered, they're not doing that. So if you're talking to each other, you're basically reinforcing this narrative again and again and again, and you get what we saw. You get this shock. Oh my God, abortion, it wasn't really the economy, it was abortion, because they have embraced what they're hearing from their counterparts on campaigns, on the Hill.
I mean, the resources get dedicated at the very top, at the party level, when there's this discussion about what happened to the white working class voter. And this has been true since Trump entered the field, but certainly even preceded him. And it was true again to some extent this election. I saw a piece coming out of the New York Times, coming out of the Pennsylvania race, saying John Fetterman's success over Mehmet Oz was because he managed to appeal to the white working class voter. And I thought, oh no, I can hear the millions of dollars going into the pursuit of that white whale of the Democratic Party. And journalism follows. Doesn't have to, though. Did you want to say, and Rosine, I want you to come back. Did you want to say something quick?
Oh, I was just going to say very quickly, the funny thing about that Fetterman thing is that more people who made less than $50,000 voted for Fetterman than those without college degrees. So it's just a skewed analysis.
Yeah, I think I would love that if the media, pundits, the elites, whoever is writing these headlines would just say what they mean. If you mean white working class voters, say that. If you mean poor people, say that. I mean,
white working
you don't
class
gotta call
men.
us rednecks, but you can spell out what you mean.
Yeah.
Like the people that are writing headlines and making these decisions, the only working class person they probably interact with is their Uber driver or their delivery person. They live in these weird little bubbles where they're right, they know everything, whatever. I'm not going to get into that whole spiel, but I think that the people making these decisions are so allergic to even the tiniest hint of Marxism, and they can't understand that, to be a worker, to be working class, that's about your relationship to the means of production. And by that very simple definition, those of us who sell our labor for someone else's profit, we're working class. Starbucks workers on strike down the block right now, they're working class. The HarperCollins workers on strike right now, they're working class. The new school adjuncts on strike right now, they're working class. And the coal miners in Tuscaloosa County, Alabama on strike right now, they're working class. It's such a broader group and broader definition that I would love to see people that like to opine about working class people just say what they actually mean, and also get out and talk to someone normal, because it does not surprise me that working class voters showed up for abortion rights and for the idea of democracy and for all these other things, because we're just people. People exist in the gray areas. People are not just one thing. Even if they do go to job, even if they didn't finish college, you can't just assume you know someone by looking at their resume. That's where they fall flat. They think they know us, and it's become very clear that they don't, and they better figure it out.
Contradictions, as you put them, are, endless. Because if we were really talking economics, then we would find, queer and trans people of color, especially women of color and young people, at the top of the priority list of poor folks to go after. This would be part of our picture of who the working class are. But so far, we're not there.
We're not there.
The title of today's panel was the outcome of the 2022 midterms on working class communities and working class people. To close, your thoughts on that? What will the next 2 years look like in your view? What will you be looking at, and will these elections have made any difference? Rosina.
Yeah, I'm going to be looking at journalists like him and looking at the labor movement, because I do think it is where the movements are creating pressure points for these candidates and politicians, and I think that is going to translate in ways that we might not see immediately, but it will translate into what happens in 2024.
I think what we're going to see in Congress will be, we'll send a signal to working class communities. Not much is going to get done. And the issues, the really pressing issues with the economy, with climate, which barely registered, unfortunately, during this election, even abortion, not much is going to get done. So that should speak volumes to working class communities. That the Republicans in the House are just going to try and throw as many wrenches into moving forward to get things done.
If they don't get much done, but people felt like they voted for Democrats this time, will they blame Democrats on not getting this much done?
I think who gets blamed, as far as Democrats are concerned, it's going to be up to Democrats to tell that story. Democrats are not very good at telling their own stories. And until such time that they get better, Republicans are happy to blame them. If Democrats are going to sit back and let Republicans be their voice, then voters will blame them. Democrats need to step up and effectively articulate what they stand for, what's not getting done, and who is actually to blame.
And the aftermath in the working class communities that you cover, Kim?
Honestly, I think the best thing would be if they just left us alone. Leave women and non-binary people alone, leave trans children alone, leave all of us alone, right? You guys do what you're going to do. I'm interested in seeing how the labor movement uses this moment of, hope and maybe, okay, especially with Unite Here, we did that. There is this moment where we all had a second where we could think, okay, things aren't as bad as they could be. And then just keep it pushing. Because all the energy in the movement right now with younger people, Black and brown people, queer and trans workers, all of these forces that are moving the movement forward, that's where our future is going to lie. That's where the power lies. Pundits who make more money than any of us put together could ever think of, they can say whatever they want about the white working class. My dad's retired. Leave him out of this, Pay attention to the Amazon workers in Bessemer, Alabama, who are still trying to organize after all these years. Pay attention to Starbucks and REI and Star Garden. I think so many workers at this point, across generations and identities and every possible identity marker, they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. They're fed up. There's this moment where there's some energy and there's some hope. I think labor and I guess by extension, Democrats and the government, whoever wants stuff from us, needs to see this moment and recognize that we're done asking for crumbs. We need to take over the whole bakery.
You started by mentioning folks who had been on strike. I think you said 600 days coming up.
In Alabama, with the Warrior Met coal strike, longest active strike in America, longest strike in Alabama history, and potentially the longest strike in American coal mining history. Not getting a lot of attention, but I'm doing my best. And these guys and these folks have been holding the line for so long, and they've gotten so little attention. And if I was a Democratic operative, I would go down there and I would see who had showed up for those workers, how those workers had changed their political views, how someone who told me 2 years ago, I'm a conservative Republican, is now taking on DSA calls and quoting Eugene Debs. I would see what happens when you pay attention to working class people who need your help and offer resources and offer understanding, and see what kind of change could actually look like there. Not giving up on people because you think you know who they are. That's how you lose. That's how we all lose. And that's how the Democrats almost lost.
We've been watching highlights from a roundtable discussion recorded last month at the CUNY School of Labor and Urban Studies, an event called Election Aftermath: The Impact on the Working Class, which featured Rosina Ali, a writer for the New York Times Magazine, Gabrielle Gurley, senior editor at the American Prospect, and Kim Kelly, labor columnist at Teen Vogue. That's our show for today. If you have questions or comments, write to us at cityworks@slu.cuny.edu. For CityWorks, I'm Laura Flanders.